What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Thursday night football edition of our NFL Showdown breakdown here. I am Hold the Door DFS. Really excited to get back at some showdown action. But we do get not the most appealing matchup, but that doesn't really matter when it comes to DFS because we are able to still use prices and values and just break down the slates. And for me, I always love showdown slates because it is a little bit more of a niche, not as popular, a little softer. So we get a matchup with the Giants and the Eagles. The Eagles are going to be coming in at a 4.5-point favorite with an over under of 45 points. As most of you maybe already know, the Eagles are continuing to suffer through a ton of injuries. So I think even though we're getting Deshaun Jackson back, I think we losing Miles Sanders, losing Zach Ertz, I think the weight is just going to continue to be put onto Carson Wentz's shoulders, and he has been responding very well over the last couple weeks. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen per usual. I do want to make this most appealing for you guys. So if you have a preference, maybe you'd rather just listen and hear us and not use the DK builder. But let's dive in. Carson Wentz 10,800 I think is a lock in my lineups in cash or GPP. I think he is showing the ability to not only throw the ball 35 to 40 times a game just because of the game scripting, but he's also using his legs. 40 yards and a touchdown. Week 5, he didn't get there, but on the ground. But the other 2 weeks, he's had rushing touchdowns. He had 30 points against the Baltimore defense. He threw 40 times, only had 215 yards passing, but 2 touchdowns, and then that the rushing touchdown and yards definitely made up for another 10 points there. So again, I love Carson Wentz here in this matchup. Regardless of the price tag. And as we get into the rest of the slate, you'll notice that, your other options here are not great enough to be really cute and get away from Wentz. So going down, Daniel Jones has really struggled this year. I think we're definitely due to see some positive regression from him. This is a decent matchup for Jones in terms of, just maybe the game script and things like that. But I do expect him to throw a pick. He'll probably get sacked a couple times. The Eagles do have a good pass rush. So I think at 10-4, I think he's okay. I just don't love it. I don't love it. I think in cash, people will go double quarterback because the options are not that great below. I think in GPP, you just really focus on correlating. So, if you're going to use Daniel Jones, make sure you're using somebody like Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate. Just kind of go that route. Don't get stuck on Daniel Jones by himself on an island. Miles Sanders is out, and unfortunately, the news was caught way too early, which means Boston Scott, who we saw in week 1. And maybe week 2, I don't remember for sure. I know week 1, he was the starter, put up 7.4, and then 7.3 in week 2. I don't know. I mean, I think he's got maybe 10, 15 point upside, but I think the price tag is just too high for me. So in cash, at least at 8,400, I know the run defense is not great for the Giants, but it's not somewhere that I am right now targeting or making a priority in my lineups. Fulgham, however you pronounce his name, has been absolutely phenomenal. People are worried that Deshaun Jackson is going to take away some of his targets or his value. I don't really see it. He's proven himself here, and I think with the fact that Sanders and Jeffrey's still out and Ertz is out, even with Deshaun Jackson back, they're still lacking in their top end skill guys. And, he has proved that he can play every down. He can take the targets. I mean, look at that, 10, 13 targets in the last 2 games. He is probably my second guy that I'm going to be locking in with Carson Wentz. Those two being my favorite correlated play and cash plays. I just really think that the volume is here to stay. I just don't see how it's just all of a sudden going to disappear with somebody like Deshaun Jackson coming onto the field. Darius Slayton has kind of had a really up and down year. Scored a touchdown last week, had a really big game against Dallas. Most people do, but I get we see by the total here, I think that the game is going to be slower paced. Not really sure who he's going to get matched up on for sure. And with Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard potentially coming back, I think the price tag at 9,200 is a GPP price tag only for me on Darius Slayton. All right, moving down, we have Evan Ingram is getting a great matchup here against the Eagles, but he has been widely disappointing the entire year. 8,000 is going to be really difficult to justify. Sorry, I take that back. It'd be really hard to justify on most slates that you have better options. Right here, we don't have a ton of really good options. If you're deciding between Boston Scott, who's going to be the workhorse running back, whatever facet that looks like for someone like him. Obviously, he's a different running back than Sanders. They're not just going to give him 20 carries on the ground. I think Scott has a much safer floor. I think Ingram, in a potential situation that they're losing and they have to throw the ball, he could be a decent option, but he just has not produced. He's dropped a lot of really, easy balls. I know he's dropped a couple scores already this season. So the opportunities are there, but he's just not making the most of it. So again, pretty GPP for me. Devonta Freeman, I like more. The volume is more consistent. 18 carries last game, 17 carries the week before. And even the week before that, even with the 10-point performance with 4 catches, he when he was in Atlanta, he could catch the ball too. So I don't see a reason why he wouldn't continue to get some targets to the air. So for 7,400, I prefer him over Evan Ingram. Moving down here, Sterling Shepard at 7,000 has not officially been ruled back, but he can be activated off of the IR on Thursday before 4 o'clock Eastern time. And I think we know just in his role, he certainly would be somebody that would have been a lead receiver for them, one of their best, probably leading in targets. So I think at 7,000, if he is in, again, I prefer him as a pass catcher over, if he's not limited in any fashion. I guess we will need to make sure that in the news, and just see if they explain any limitations. But Slayton, Ingram, and then Shepard being $2,200 cheaper than Slayton, I think makes him definitely in play. And then we have Golden Tate at 6,600. Has been really non-existent. He's been catching some short passes, which is his game. So he has, a floor of, 5 to 6 points, but we're not seeing really the big games, which is obviously correlating with the lack of success with Daniel Jones. So if you think Daniel Jones gets right here, I think any of the pass catchers for the Giants will definitely be in play. But again, we're getting Shepard. If we get Shepard back, I think that is starting to take away from, Slayton and Ingram. Unfortunately, we cannot play Zach Ertz at 6,200, which I think would have been way too cheap and it would have been an easy play. But Deshaun Jackson at 5,800 is coming back onto the slate. Again, I don't really see his role really changing. They like to take a couple shots down the field. He is definitely more of a guy they like to target for a bigger play. Obviously as he's aged, he's lost some of that top end speed, and I think he's viable, but I like Fulgham a lot better. Moving down next, Corey Clement would likely be maybe the second running back in this situation. It's, pretty unclear. He was in week 1 when Miles Sanders was out. He had 6 carries for 19 yards and caught a couple balls to the air. But there's a lot more risk than potential reward for me at 5,200. So with Zach Ertz out, we have Richard Rodgers and Kroom, I think is how you pronounce it. And we'll get down to him in our value plays. But 5,000 Richard Rodgers. We know the Eagles like to use their tight ends. But I do think you really are going to need a touchdown from him to get anything close to, 10 fantasy points. I think it's going to maybe be a couple play action, 7 to 8 yard catches, maybe for a first down, maybe catch 1 over 10. I just don't love the upside here again for 5,000. But as you see, this is the theme on this entire slate, that you just don't really feel that good about any of these offensive options, which is why I think Carson Wentz will be mega chalk at captain in cash lineups. Greg Ward here at 4,800, again, has been kind of up and down. I actually like him a little bit more than, somebody like Darius Slayton or Golden Tate. But again, Ward's volume could get cut into a little bit here with the return of Deshaun Jackson. The Eagles defense and the Giants defense, I think the Eagles defense maybe is an okay option in cash. They're like top 5 in the league in sacks. And then we know that Daniel Jones is prone to turnovers, and that could likely lead to maybe a defensive touchdown. Nothing that I like to lock in at all in cash, but I think they are something to consider on a slate like this. The kickers, both under 4,000. I think that is too cheap for both of them. I think both of them are in play, Elliott and Graham Gano. Now we're going to get into the value here. We got Arcega-Whiteside at 2,400. Again, somebody that I think is going to be competing with snaps with Deshaun Jackson, Greg Ward, Fulgham. Obviously, we have Hightower here at 1,200, who I know they tried to take a couple shots deep, and they did hit one for 50 yards last game. He's only 1,200, and he's actually like caught a ball in every game except for week 2, even when some of the other guys were there. So I think Hightower at 1,200 is definitely a viable punt play. I like him a little bit more than Arcega-Whiteside. Caden Smith, kind of being that secondary tight end behind Evan Ingram, has not put up a 0 yet this year. But again, your upside is probably pretty limited. If you got 4.5 points out of him, I think you actually would be fairly happy. And I just don't see that being a repeat performance in week 7. Moving down a little bit further, Dion Lewis has been pretty non-existent. He's caught a few balls through the air some of the earlier weeks, actually, when Barkley was there. And since then, we haven't really seen a ton. So I don't love him. Actually like Gallman a little bit more at 800. He has caught a couple balls last week, not really for much, but they are actually giving him the opportunity to run the ball a little bit. So, you can consider him. But Dion Lewis for 1,600, double the price. I don't know. Gallman didn't play last week, but Dion Lewis, they're all really not that great of options. And I don't think you're actually going to be diving down here that much. Here's Kroom at 200. I just don't think, with how cheap the kickers are, how many not that great options there are at the top, I think you're going to find yourself with a Wentz, Fulgham, at least one of the kickers, and then maybe pairing up, Freeman with Jones or something like that. I think Jones, I ragged him at the beginning, but I think he is still viable in cash, just because he does have, probably a 10 to 15 point floor, which you can't really say that confidently with too many other players on this slate. So hopefully you enjoy the breakdown. I'm going to try to be a little bit more explicit on maybe cash and GPP plays and what I'm considering in some captain roles for my style, which is particularly head-to-head only, which is a style that has worked really well for me. If you have not hit that subscribe button yet and you are not a subscriber, do that. It helps us out a ton, costs you nothing. Send me a screenshot of you as a new subscriber, and we will look to get you some free content at Fantasy Sports Insight. Otherwise, be on the lookout. We are going to have a lot more content coming out. We have a PGA video that you can find in our channel. I have my bankroll video. If you're looking to increase your bankroll using cash games, check that out. And then Gator Guy and I are going to kind of introduce a bankroll challenge, just kind of tactics, just talking about our bankroll more frequently, and trying to use some of the strategies that we use to help out other DFS players to become more profitable. So again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe. I appreciate you listening. Have a good night. Let's hope this game can get over 45 points. Otherwise, it's going to be a snoozer.